Leonardo da Vinci could perhaps be called the most creative man of all time. Despite receiving absolutely no formal education beyond basic reading, writing, and math, he became an anatomist, illustrating the structure of the entire human body, a cartographer, creating some of the first examples of modern satellite maps, a botanist, an engineer, a geologist, and undeniably one of the greatest artists of all time. Leonardo has done so many things throughout the 67 years of his life that it seems absolutely impossible. He was self-taught and built a unique path to his genius. His achievements seem incomprehensible, but he's very much a human, like the rest of us. Da Vinci was obsessive, easily distracted, and made a lot of mistakes. This video will not be as much about his life and personal history, it will be more about what we can learn from his incredible genius that transcends through centuries that have passed since he lived. Leonardo lived during the period of the Renaissance, a truly unique time in human history. Da Vinci was very lucky to be born in Italy, which was the heart of the Renaissance and probably the most creative place in the entire world during the 15th and 16th centuries. Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael and others were all genius men that lived during the Italian Renaissance. But there's one thing that sets Leonardo apart from almost any human in history: his ability to combine intellect with imagination and art. Da Vinci studied the anatomy and the science of art to gradually improve his paintings, used his imagination to be an excellent engineer, envisioning things like helicopters and so-called at the time flying machines, which would be created centuries later. In some way, innovation requires a reality distortion field. Leonardo was not just a talented man, he was an absolute genius. A man with talent hits a target no one else can hit. A genius discovers something no one else can see. Some people perform incredibly well in one specific area of life, but Leonardo's genius spread through everything. He could do it all. His ability to make connections through many areas of life was a key to his innovative genius, taking something incredible from one field and transporting it into another. Da Vinci used his knowledge of anatomy to improve his paintings, and his painting skills in creating the first ever satellite map. As Steve Jobs called it, connecting the dots. Leonardo was one of Steve Jobs' heroes. Jobs once said, "He, Leonardo, saw beauty in both art and engineering. His ability to combine them made him a genius." Every week, Da Vinci would write a list of things he would like to explore and experiment with. His task lists were not filled up with busy work, but instead with calculations to make, experiments to try, places to draw, and deep questions to consider. A special discovery we find in his notebooks is that Leonardo let his mind wander from one thing to something completely different in a short amount of time. Today we know that more than 7,000 pages are only 1/4 of what Leonardo wrote during his lifetime. Here are some interesting tasks he set out for himself in his notebooks. Get the measurement of the sun promised by Maestro Giovanni Franchese, the Frenchman. Calculate the measurement of Milan and its suburbs. Get the master of arithmetic to show you how to square a triangle. Make a trial of the actual flying machine over the water, so that if you fall, you do not harm yourself. It looks like Leonardo was a person who tried to understand anything that sparked his interest to its fullest. Go down rabbit holes no one else would. Many of us think of something unique for a second, wonder about it a little bit, and then get distracted by something else. We let our curiosity simply pass and disappear. Da Vinci would write everything he was curious about in his task lists. Take a lot of time to let his mind marinate his ideas, observe, and visualize them. Leonardo was also never scared to ask anyone he knew a lot about what he wanted to know. Da Vinci also loved experiments and always preferred them to theory. Da Vinci's unique curiosity towards the world is also a good reminder for us to understand the importance of helping create such qualities within the younger generation and ourselves. The education system, however, does the complete opposite. What if instead of blindly memorizing knowledge for the sake of memorization, you teach the younger generation to question and contemplate it? This is how true science is done. As I've already mentioned, Leonardo was mainly self-taught, learning new things based on where his curiosity would drive him. Perhaps the lack of formal, authoritarian schooling in his life is what led him to develop a thinking process completely unique from anyone else. Despite the clearly observable genius of Leonardo, several academics told him that because he had no book learning, he could not properly express what he desired to describe. Da Vinci did not care. Compared to his colleagues in science, his willingness to challenge received wisdom would let him craft a unique scientific method. Later in time, Galileo achieved what he did in science for the same reason: ability to question commonly perceived truths. The modern authoritarian and standardized school system largely prevents young people from following their innate curiosities, as they have to learn what they are told at a specific time. You cannot inspire curiosity by forcing people to do something. These things just do not go hand in hand. Such a system of standardized schooling with little differences for every student makes people alike to one another and destroys individualism. Creativity dies together with it. Albert Einstein, famously known for his creative thinking, once wrote, "It is in fact nothing short of a miracle that the modern methods of education have not yet entirely strangled the holy curiosity of inquiry. For this delicate plant, aside from stimulation, stands mainly in need of freedom. It is a very grave mistake to think that the enjoyment of seeing and searching can be promoted by means of coercion and sense of duty. By dictating what we think and do with the majority of our waking hours, there is little room for us to decide for ourselves what we need to do. Following our interest and intuition is a requirement for creativity." The modern world also forces you to choose a single discipline as a teenager and then stick to it for the rest of your life. What a stupid idea, a complete mistake. Leonardo was in some way lucky to not have faced this obstacle in his life. Perhaps we would have lost one of the greatest creative thinkers of all time. You must follow your curiosity and be a free man. Da Vinci also had some fascinating thoughts on the nature of curiosity. He believed that creativity requires going slowly, pausing, and even procrastinating, allowing ideas to marinate in your mind. There were times when Leonardo used to stare at his paintings for hours without doing anything. In addition, he thought that if you work all the time, your brain doesn't properly process any information. There's an incredible amount of things we can learn from Leonardo. I think it's really important to be curious if you want to do great work. Be curious. That's the way. I have no special talent. I'm just passionately curious, Einstein wrote. Never numb your curiosities and let your mind wander. Sometimes fantasies are a path to reality. Leonardo blurred the lines with reality and fantasy. Seek knowledge for its own sake. Leonardo had absolutely no idea how the walk on the heart valve would help him to create the Mona Lisa, but by letting himself be driven by his natural curiosities, he could make connections no one else could. Steve Jobs is a great modern example of it. He talks about a story of him taking a calligraphy class in college, which at the time seemed completely useless. Years later, having learned calligraphy, he implemented this knowledge to create beautiful fonts for the Mac, which largely influenced its success. Most importantly, remember that the people who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones who do. It was a pleasure to create this video, and I wish you a great day.